Okay, I think we have everyone. So welcome. Welcome to today's session. I am Thomas Feeney. I'm the marketing manager here at Snapfix, and I'm just here to kind of co-host and help facilitate today's session. Before we get into it, I'm just going to do a very quick overview on today's agenda, and then touch on some housekeeping pieces before I hand you over. So today's session, we're going to be meeting our panelists shortly. We're going to then be discussing the Oxsana and Snapfix partnership. I want to also as well do an introduction to Snapfix, which will be covered by our CEO, Brett. And we'll be opening our first panel discussion then, which is a full panel discussion with Oxsana, Snapfix, and then we have a guest visitor as well, which is Craig from Firoka. There's going to be a quick audience poll. So if you see below, there is a poll section. So that will come up and be launched. There's 5 questions to answer from. You just select one. And then finally, we're going to wrap up the session with the next panel discussion, which is with Craig from Firoka, how he has achieved operational clarity with Snapfix. And we are going to wrap up with the Q&A section then. Just some housekeeping bits. Today's session is 60 minutes in length. It is recorded and it will be available on demand. If you want to engage with your fellow webinar attendees, please just hit the chat function below and select everyone from the dropdown. And then lastly, the Q&A section at the end. If you have any questions that come about throughout the webinar, please just drop them into the Q&A section. We have around 10 minutes at the end to cover these off, and we'll try and get through them. Okie doke. Brilliant. So I am going to hand over to Alicia.
Hi all, I'm Alicia. I'm one of the board members at Oxsana, and as you know, our chairman Al. We're very pleased to be working with Snapfix in this way, but we will go into that in more detail. Today, just highlighting who our speakers are. We've got Brett, CEO of Snapfix, and as Thomas rightly showed, we've also got Craig, who's the Group Operations Director at Firoka, who kindly is joining us as well to give you real life example of what's actually what Snapfix is about and how it plays out. Moving on.
I got to tell you, by the way, it felt like the dating game already. It was like, who is behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3? I love the reveal. Anyway, good morning and good afternoon, everybody.
And then just a little bit before we jump into the detail is to remind you why this has come about. Oxsana, our mission has always been to help collectively achieve greatness for everyone. All the Oxsana members, whether it be collective purchasing, whether it be shared information, and things such as this help us grow and perform better. And what better way to showcase that and to understand it than from having real life experience from that. So what we really want to highlight, why we wanted to partner with Snapfix, is because we saw the opportunities here. So the first is breaking down operational silos. I mean, that element of collectivity has never been more important, and I think this is crucial for now and moving forward into the future. The predictive maintenance, we need to make sure that we're proactive and we're constantly fixing. We're not waiting for everything to fall apart or waiting to find out that something hasn't been done that needed to be done. So the showcase and using content and real life examples and real life being able to snap is crucial. Anything in operations, accountability is always key, so that's hugely important. And then staff productivity, if staff are able to be accountable, they can see the progress, they're obviously more productive. And the last thing we wanted to touch upon is, and the reason that we love Snapfix is because actually this is hugely sustainable. Whereas maybe we're using paper and using paper trails, that no longer needs to be the case. So we were really intrigued into how Snapfix is a great solution on every stage on the operational basis for us. Al, is there anything you want to add?
So look, this has become a real theme in 2025 for us because, and I've said this a few times now on various webinars that we put together over the last year, but, hotel operations, we've been very sophisticated on the front end. Over the years, it's been, you've got CRMs, revenue rate management systems, PMSs. But what we've failed to do, I think, for many of us anyway, is we've not sophisticated the back end of the hotel business and the hotel operations side of things. So, with the tightening labor market, economies a lot tougher than it has been. All those sort of things are where we need to really boost productivity, right? It's all about productivity, and that's where you have to use technology to leverage it. And as you know, so just going back to the Oxsana sort of mission, purpose, values, I've got that strap line that's so important to me, is that, competition leads to a jungle and collaboration leads to civilization. And the more we all work together and we help each other, and then this, of course, that also leads into our mission, which is, to create opportunities that enable UK hoteliers to build long-term wealth while empowering them to maximize their positive impact on society and the environment. And I think there's a lot of value in that as a group. And, we've seen that how, we've all been able to work together, help each other especially over the last 5 years when we had COVID, and the comfort that was given to a lot of hoteliers, independent hoteliers that weren't part of a major brand, but at least they were part of Oxsana. They were receiving all the same knowledge, hospitality, legal challenges, data, leads for business that you might get more from the brand sometimes and not so much as an independent hotelier, but you had it all available to you. So, we've seen that there's so much value, and we can see that the members find there's so much value in this. So yeah, I think it's great. And then just going back to, sustainability and paper and all this sort of stuff. But, I would often, when I was operating, I used to say to everyone, it's all in my head. And then, but, where is it? We don't know. There's so much that gets missed nowadays as well, because there's literally so much going on, and you're trying to juggle so many more balls. So you need to use technology, otherwise it's going to be very difficult.
Excellent, thank you for that. So I'm going to hand over to Brett now, who is going to do a brief overview of Snapfix, and followed by a quick demo.
Thank you, Thomas. I'll just start first by saying thank you to Al and Alicia. Snapfix is very grateful to be partnering with you and with the rest of the Oxsana organization. And we're really excited to be on this mission together. So, I'm eager to address the group today, share a little bit more about what we do. I won't take up too much time focused on Snapfix, because I think we're here today to actually hear from the experts, the expert operators like Craig and like the Oxsana team. But I do think it's important that we take a minute, as Al said at the end. Like, technology can change how we interact and how we approach day-to-day operations. And that's really our mission here at Snapfix. So what are we trying to be, and what are we? We're a central operations platform. And our goal is to remove all of the chaos from your day-to-day operations. Obviously, that's not totally possible. There will be chaos anyway, because this is hospitality. But to remove that chaos and replace it with seamless and efficient operations. And so what does that actually mean in practice? Well, Snapfix is connecting, first of all, every single team and person inside your organization, from your housekeepers to your front office, to your back office, to your operations team, to the people the valets that are parking cars, putting everybody into one system, where instead of operating on WhatsApp and Excel spreadsheets and sticky notes and other forms of paper and pen, everybody has access to the same pieces of information in real time, and that information is coordinated and prioritized for each individual. So people see the right messages, the right tasks, the right calls to action, so that they can operate incredibly efficiently. So what do we actually see when that works and when that happens? We see about a 15% improvement in productivity. So team members are getting significantly more done throughout the day. They spend a lot less time racing around trying to figure out what has been done or hasn't been done? Am I responsible for fixing this? Is this issue still a priority issue? Is the thing I'm working on right now the thing that I should be working on, or something else that someone else is yelling about over WhatsApp? So that coordination of communication and coordination of tasks makes the team much more efficient and allows them to operate effectively throughout the day, actually saving real time. Typical team member will save up to an hour a day. In addition to that, we see significantly lower cost of operation. So there's a lot less energy and time and dollars that go into solving things that break down without any real indication they're happening, and a lot more effort that goes into preventing issues from coming up, which is overall lower cost. So we see that operational cost, our actual sort of day-to-day bottom line costs, go down for an organization. And I think one of the most important things here is that the guest at the end of the day feels the impact. When you walk into a hotel, you're immediately getting a sense of what is the brand, what is the culture of this place? What is the experience that I'm about to have on my vacation, on my work trip, whatever it is, whatever reason it is that's brought you to that hotel. And happier employees, more coordinated employees, more efficient employees, that permeates everything, not just how quickly we can respond to a guest request, like to get a pair of towels or ice delivered to our room, but they feel it in every single interaction that they have. And so, Snapfix properties, what we typically see is about 20% fewer negative reviews and an improvement in that guest-facing score. So lots of really sort of key ROI and operational improvements that we're seeing across Snapfix hotels. So I'm just going to get this pulled up on my phone. And just so everybody knows here, Snapfix is available in both a mobile format as well as a web format. So I'm going to focus today, just for simplicity and for time, just on the mobile version so we can see some of the pieces in action. We're not going to have time here to do a full demo, nor do I think that everybody on here wants to see a full demo of Snapfix right now. But I do think it's really important for you to be able to sort of take some of those words and buzzwords, I apologize for the buzzwords, that I used on the previous slide and actually see what that means in action. So I will take you guys into the demo here. And as we kick off here, I just want to say that one of the things that's really important to us at Snapfix is this idea of continuous improvement and continuing to invest in the software that we have available. We're currently used at thousands of properties all across the UK, Europe, and the rest of the world. And we're always investing in the product. So just in the last couple of months, we've rolled out brand new features for how we're storing checklists and enabling multi-site operators, teams that have multiple hotels in different locations, to more easily manage compliance and accountability across all those different sites. 1 second. I don't know why my screen is disappearing. We just released a new approval flow, which allows managers to get better and more effective oversight over different tasks, especially critical tasks like compliance-related ones. We are about to roll out a brand new housekeeping suite. I'm going to show you guys our sort of rooms module in just a minute, which is obviously quite visual and gives you a sense of all the different rooms in your property. We've got a brand new housekeeping module that's going to be layered on top of this, just coming out in the next month or so, and a whole host of really interesting AI-related tools that's going to continue to chip away at that team effectiveness and continue to make teams more efficient throughout the day. So automatic prioritization, automatic tagging, image recognition. There's a really interesting set of AI-related tools that we're excited to release. So some things are already here, some things coming out as we look towards January and February. But I mean, here at Snapfix, I think we're always sort of thinking about what are the challenges that customers are facing every single day? What makes operating a hotel challenging? And how do we bring seamless and simplicity to that experience? So I'm going to kick off here with the demo. And again, as I said, I'm going to go through this as quickly as I possibly can. But I want to start first with exactly what you hear in the name, Snap and Fix. So I'm going to click right here on the camera. You guys are going to get a beautiful view here of my daughter's cactus that she made me, as well as the view out my window today, which is 7 inches of snow that came down here in New York yesterday. We had a snow day. So the first thing that you do in Snapfix is you take a picture. I can then do anything that I want to that picture. I can draw on it. I could annotate it and say things like snow day. But what I'm doing here is I'm capturing the essence of what is the issue that we are experiencing. In this case, the snow day, and the kids were home, and it was total chaos yesterday. And the next thing that Snapfix is going to prompt me to do is, where does this fit? So I'm going to stick this into our maintenance group and assign it here to an individual. And now that is all I need to do to log a task. Literally snap a picture and drop it into the application. From there, Adam here, who has been assigned the task, is going to get an instant notification on his device, letting him know that a new task has been assigned to him. I would be able to communicate directly with him and let him know that there is a lot of snow. And he can begin to get working on this activity. So that's the sort of core of everything that we do in Snapfix. We want teams, and as you can see here, Kieran is jumping in to let me know that Adam, unfortunately, is not working today. He's also seeing this in the maintenance group, and so he's going to jump in, potentially reassign the task to himself, but jumping right in to work on this now. So as Kieran goes to work on the task, he's going to move that task from red to yellow, which is indicating that the task is in progress. And at the end of all that, he's going to move it to green to indicate that the task is completed. Now, I recognize that all this seems quite simple, red, yellow, green, a photo, but all of this leads to a digital audit trail that cannot be faked and allows you as a team to look back and say, okay, 6 months ago, what was happening in my organization? How many tasks got logged? How many guest requests? How long did it take us to activate on these guest requests? Which of my team members is most efficient at solving challenges throughout the day? Who's moving through tasks more quickly? Who's typically solving our most urgent issues? So all the sort of key operational questions that you as a manager and as an operator need to understand to coach your teams and to drive a really efficient operation. Snapfix enables that, but we enable it in a really simple way. So I'm going to jump back here, a couple more things just to very quickly show you. And I know we don't have a lot of time to demo here, so I'm going to jump through them quickly. The first one is our feed here. So, Snapfix is incredibly visual. This is designed to look and feel a bit like Instagram or Snapchat, so that team members like housekeepers and frontline maintenance teams who might not be the most technologically savvy can pick up the application and in a matter of a couple of minutes go, yeah, this looks and feels like many of the other tools that I use. So the feed is completely customized for every individual on your team. They're seeing only the things that are most relevant to them, such as priority issues. You can see here this one has a 1-star on it to be a priority issue, or if an issue that is due or coming due soon and has a remind me function or a due date on it, these things are going to pop up at the right time for every single individual on your team. As I started to show you earlier, Snapfix integrates with your PMS system. So we're driving that real-time communication between, your room statuses that you can see from a booking standpoint and a check-in standpoint, and everything else that's actually going on within the property. Which rooms are cleaned, which ones are still in progress, who's got a do not disturb on, which rooms should we not check in a VIP to because they're in a maintenance status and have a variety of undone tasks in that room. So we don't want to put one of our important guests into a room, even if it's clean, if it's been a room that's historically had a bunch of issues, if we can avoid it. So all of this information is available to our front desk check-in agents, as well as to our housekeepers on the floor who are moving around. And the very last thing that I will show you, and as I said before, we're barely scratching the surface on things, but is how do we think about planned maintenance? So what we're looking at here is a calendar view of all of the planned activities for a particular hotel. And so you're actually able to scroll through and see, which activities do I have on which particular days. And you can see here, we don't have anything set up here, but we could move in and just jump right into our scheduler and turn on a new task that will trigger automatically. So things like making sure that we're checking the chemicals in our spa or in our pool area every single day, and that those chemical readings are actually happening during very specific times. Snapfix helps to manage the full audit process for that and ensure that not only did the task happen, but it happened in the right place, and we've got photo, video, or location-based proof of really key activities happening. Craig, as we get into the later part of today's discussion, we'll talk a lot about compliance and accountability and management of teams and how this actually plays out in action. But I wanted to give you guys just a really quick overview of what things look like here. So with that, let me stop sharing before Thomas yells at me and tells me that I've gone on much too long.
Thanks for that, Brett. So yeah, I am going to open it up now for the first session in our panel discussion, which is going to be led out by Brett. So we've already been introduced to everybody, but yeah, today's session is going to be discussing the operational challenges in hospitality and their impact on guests, teams, and profitability. So I'll hand it back to you, Brett.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I will do a lot less talking now. And we'll have Al and Alicia and Craig jump in. But so bringing this to life, I wanted to highlight a couple things that I am often hearing as I visit with our customers or visit hotels. And so one of the places I'll start first is just, the challenges around team communication. And I think, in the world that we are in today, there's no issue in actually communicating, right? Like it is an always on world. It's a 24/7 world. We have things like WhatsApp. Everybody has a cell phone in their pocket. So everybody can reach everybody else on the team. But that doesn't mean that communication is efficient or effective. And in particular, it doesn't mean that communication is actually secure. And I think especially when we think about some of the differences that exist in the world of hospitality, the average tenure of an employee being 14, 16 months long, the sensitivity of some of the information and things that might happen during a guest's stay. It's incredibly important that this communication is both super efficient and effective to deliver for the guest experience and also really secure. And so I want to kick us off there around staff communication. And I'd love to hear a bit from the group, Al, Alicia, Craig, what are some of the challenges that you've seen when it comes to communication in your hotels or in your partner hotels? How have you guys been addressing this? And of course, I think for the group, any funny stories are always welcome here too.
I'm going to jump in. Something springs to mind straight away. Over COVID, we have a hotel in Milton Keynes, which is quite close to Silverstone. So we always get an F1 team that stay with us. And that team, unfortunately, some of the people contracted COVID. Suddenly, you're in a bubble, but half the hotel was designated a no-go zone. However, it meant that internally in this group of people, I can't name the name, but in this F1 team, the communication was all over the place. They needed things left, right, and center. And suddenly this room wasn't allowed to be anywhere near it. I mean, it was chaos is the best word to describe it. And we had only WhatsApp to be able to communicate between everyone at the hotel. And it's a bubble between everybody. And there's communication going left, right, and center. It's all on one WhatsApp thread. So people are missing things and things were needing to be done simultaneously. That's why actually when you showcase your demo, I think the ease of operation looks beautifully placed, but also there's different elements that you can focus in on different areas simultaneously. So it's not this chaos that's not only chaos of communication, but chaos in quite literally in front of you because you can't keep track of everything in real time. So yeah, our hotel was in chaos. Luckily, everything was fine and the same team keeps coming back. But yes, hence why I can't mention names because they did get COVID and yeah.
In those moments, though, I mean, the chaos is very real, right? It's not just like, oh, this is crazy. This is another day. Like it feels like the world is crashing down. Everybody is running around. Nobody knows what's important, what they should be focused on. And I think that's part of the challenge is those moments of chaos, it becomes really difficult to maintain operations. You start like honing in and just trying to fix. It's like whack-a-mole, right? The old carnival game, as opposed to having the clarity and ability to sort of take a step back and go, okay, these are all the things in front of me. These are assigned to this person. These are assigned to this person. These are the rules we need to operate by. And obviously that would be much more effective than running around. But I know those moments. They're quite insane.
Very true, and that is the actual reality. We are so many of us, just doing this webinar with you guys made me review my own situation with my hotel in Nottingham, and yeah, we've got 3 different WhatsApp groups, all really all around housekeeping and maintenance and operations, and you just think it's all over the place, really, and it's causing it. You think about it, it's like invisible friction that's happening all the time. So there's friction happening all the time, but it's just not visible, and that's another reason why it's very similar to what Alicia was saying, that the software is so visual that it just makes it so much easier to see what's happening, what's going on, and actually there are and then also I just realized that there are rooms that I've realized that I've got rooms from 5 years ago that were causing us problems then, and I've just because we were out of action, because we weren't trading as a regular hotel for a few years, so that kind of slipped away, and now we've gone back to regular trading, and suddenly these 2 pain points have come back again to haunt us. And actually, it wasn't even on a WhatsApp group. That wasn't even in a WhatsApp group. So having the ability to have an audit trail to see what's going on, handover history as well, and then of course the big one is security, right? So today, if there's a security leak, then your customers are going to be very concerned, and especially if they're using their own laptops and stuff like that, and anything's breached their work-wise or anything like that, cause a lot of reputational damage to you and the brand, right? So there's it's a big issue. So you've got to fill those operational gaps, really. So
Yeah, it's such an interesting balance when we talk about security because you need everybody on the team to have access to the information they need to do their job, but only what they need to do their job. And if they're no longer working for you, you don't want them to have access anymore. And this is one of the things that, we're just hearing from every single operator that we talk to is what makes them so nervous about WhatsApp. Because you can remove someone from a WhatsApp group, but that WhatsApp group lives on their phone. They might have backed it up. They just have all these pictures, all this information about the things that are happening inside of your facility. And it's really not, a place where they should be information they should have if they're not there anymore. It's so important to sort of stay vigilant about security. I want to move forward to another question here. And Craig, feel free to jump into this one because I know this is near and dear to your heart too. But one of the big questions that I hear when I'm talking to our customers is always about, like what happened and is it fixed? It's this like where do we stand in this issue? It's like it's not that we don't know that we've got a problem in the hotel. Teams are really great about keeping their eyes open, trying to report things. I mean, they want to do good work throughout the day. It's this follow-up question. Is this still a problem? Do I need to put someone on it? Is the person on it right now? What else are they working on? All the 50, 200 questions that come out of that. I've got a young daughter, she's 5, and I feel like we play this game in the car where it's like every single time we get into something, there's like 600 more questions that she could ask me about it. And that's how I feel when I'm talking to customers that aren't using this kind of technology. And so, Craig, I'd love to get your take on this, but how do you drive this like sense of accountability and this sense of sort of clarity with your teams to make sure that you're not running around trying to figure out, where do we stand on issues and are they fixed and what's going on?
I think the good thing with the app is it's real-time access to it. So, the staff can, as you see earlier, it's really easy to access. So the staff can report an issue straight away. They haven't got to then, save the picture or send it to anyone or do anything with that. And then also from a management point of view, you can see how those activities are being worked on, what's being done, what's outstanding. And the traffic light system is really good because you can see how many, outstanding jobs are still there. And you can ask the question, why? Is it because you're waiting for parts, or, it's a bigger job and they need, more than one person to do it? And then also you then get to see, what's been done and, what's been completed. And then what's really good about it when you drill down to it is how long it's taken someone to do that task. So it could be a maintenance job that's taken, 20 minutes to do, or, from a management point of view, you can then sort of raise the question, why is this task still outstanding? It's a relatively simple task. Why hasn't it been done? And I think the staff are more aware and they've got more of accountability when they realize that you can see real-time activity on their jobs, and what's being done.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, like relating this back to what Al said before. When you've identified a long-term issue in a room that might not be something that you want to go fix today from a cost standpoint or from an availability of, contractor standpoint, you say, okay, we're gonna deal with this in CapEx planning, and we'll manage it. You've got to be able to then track against that, right? Just putting that away and putting it in an Excel document and never looking at it again is when we run into the problems 2, 3 years later. The problem gets worse. Customers continue to complain about it. Every guest that stays in the room writes a review about it. And you sort of sit there and you're like always just in this reactive mode versus having that visibility and clarity, Craig, as you're saying, to say, look, I can track it. I know if it's been actioned or not. I know why it hasn't been actioned. And I've got the clarity of that to sort of run my team effectively. Because not
And you can see the recurring issues as well. So if something's been fixed, and then it appears again a few months later, you can look at it and think, okay, did we fix it properly the first time, or is there another underlying issue in that particular area that we need to, focus on?
Yeah, I think that's so true. I want to jump to just one more question here, for the barter group here, around the importance of compliance in your facilities. So, getting a bit out of our day-to-day for a minute. These are complex operations. Whether it's a 25 room or 50 room, more boutique style property, or a Vegas property, that's got 300-400 rooms, some sort of resort style property. Compliance is absolutely critical. You have thousands of guests that are moving through your buildings every single month. And those guests are subject to a huge amount of risk, and it opens up the organization to a huge amount of risk. If you aren't practicing the right health and safety procedures in your restaurant, if you aren't maintaining the equipment in your gyms, if you aren't, taking the steps necessary from a fire safety standpoint in a truly disaster scenario where you might have to evacuate the building, or, in something as simple as making sure that hazards are cleaned up in and around the property so that guests don't have a slip, trip, and fall. These are all sort of a really key part of preventative and effective compliance and risk management. And so I'd love to sort of hear from the group here, and without naming names, maybe someone can share a bit of an insane risk story that they either successfully or unsuccessfully managed at some point in time.
I can't think of an incident right now. It'll come to me maybe in a few minutes, but you're absolutely right. Compliance is so important, and it's complex in hotels, right? We've got different brands, different standards, recurring inspections, certification, mandatory training, all that kind of stuff. It's and then there's all the operational pain that you go through, PDFs and ring folders and email chains and all that sort of stuff. So having an app to help with all of that really makes a difference. And of course the impact is better guest safety and trust, especially when it comes to serious accidents. I'm just trying to think of an incident, and there must have been loads, but it's not coming to me right now. But I'm just going a little bit back to the checklist, the accountability side of things. One thing I do think about apps is that for some reason people actually enjoy using them rather than using a checklist, right? Because a checklist comes along and most people just wait till the end of the day and they just quickly tick 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 tick. But for some reason, I don't know if it's just me, but I just think that when I've got something in my hand like that, I'm more stimulated to use it properly and get things done properly. Whereas, and I've been a manager of a Pizza Hut and multiple restaurant chains and stuff like that, and I'd be ticking off the checklist all the time. So of course, this compliance stuff is really very, very important, and also reduces the kind of anxiety that staff have as well, right? Because that's quite a big thing. I remember a receptionist that used to work for me, and she started off as a chambermaid actually, and ended up being head receptionist at the hotel and a kind of almost a deputy manager. So she came from right from the very start, and I remember that she would get, if things weren't organized properly and she had everything in place on a Saturday day shift, which is the busiest day of the week, she'd be stressed. So so
I think the good thing as well with the compliance is it's targeted. You can put a date that you want things done by, or put actioned. And what's really good is 'cause we use the NFC functionality on Snapfix as well, which is a little tag. So if you're doing a security walk around the building, the team member has to literally swipe their phone over that tag, and it will tell you what time they've been there. We use it for if we're doing, for example, a check on fire extinguishers. So rather than someone sitting in an office and just ticking a sheet, you're not too sure if they're actually physically checking those areas. Whereas this NFC tagging does actually, they physically have to swipe their phone through it. And we've got tasks where we've got things set up that have to be checked every hour, and you get a report the next day to show you what time that was checked, and if it wasn't checked, it comes up as red. So you can say, look, you didn't check it for 5 hours. It's supposed to be checked every hour. And what we found is, when we started doing those reports, particularly the heads of department suddenly realised, actually, this area is being checked. I am being monitored on this now, so I need to make sure that I am doing it. And what's happening now is they actually come to us or come to me and say, oh, when you get the report tomorrow, you're going to see that I didn't do it between 7 and 8 because it was really busy and this happened and that happened. But I did do it after 9 o'clock. So they're passionate about making sure they're doing it correctly as well, and they know it's being monitored.
Yeah, this is such a great example, Craig. We need to remember that team members really want to do a great job. That is almost always the case when you're talking to the operators out there. They want clarity. They want to understand what is expected of them, and then they want to deliver on that. The challenge is when you're constantly running around and reacting to just what's happening in that moment, it's really hard to sort of do all the right things throughout the day. And so I love this example, Craig, because it's like, yeah, I get it now. I can see the indication on my phone. I can see it in front of me. I need to do this every hour. If I can't get to it, I can be honest with you and say why. And maybe you'll change the policies and processes depending on how critical it is to do something every hour. But the point is you start to drive this really real sense of accountability and ownership and buy-in from all of your staff. And I think that's really important.
There was one thing, Brett, we spoke about before, which was, say, for instance, housekeeping. We need to get them to comply with a brand standard. You can actually use a visual reference for them on the app, which I find fantastic because usually things get lost in translation. So to visually see what it should look like, and then for them to, once they've done it, take a picture, that's accountability, but that's showcasing what they've done, and that level of check-ins is then becomes something completely different. So I think the process makes sense and content is key.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, I think when you think about a senior housekeeper that's been with you for years, they know what's expected of them, but that doesn't mean that standards don't change over that time. And so even helping different people understand, from a lightweight training standpoint, every time you go into a room, this is the new standard. This is what something's supposed to look like. It's that really soft, subtle reminder to make sure that everyone on the staff is doing things to the standards that you want as your policies and processes adapt over time.
And if I go back as well to the security side of things, one of the reasons we looked for a system like Snapfix is because, from a GDPR data control point of view, you didn't have that control with WhatsApp because, once it's delivered to WhatsApp, it's kept there. So even if you've deleted a user or if you've deleted, they've left the property, they've still got that data on their device. So that's why, we looked at it, and we actually sent the Snapfix data controls over to our GDPR compliance company, and they came back and said, it's good to use.
Thanks, Craig. It's a great example. All right, so we've got to start to wrap up this first portion here, just given the time, and I think the next area we want to jump into in just a second is going to be to poll the rest of the listeners here on some of the challenges you're facing. So we talked a bit about security and compliance and staff communication, the importance of audits, preventative maintenance, accountability, team training is a lot of different topics that I think, this team here has raised. And I think like there's probably 50 or 60 more that on a typical Monday or Tuesday, everyone here is experiencing in their hotels. We've got a couple that we would love to get your feedback on in just a second to see which of the challenges that we've identified are the ones that are most important to you and the biggest challenges that you're facing.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Brett. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll now for everyone to answer. So bear with me 2 seconds and I'll get it here.
You want to tell people, Thomas, how to answer the poll?
Yeah, absolutely. So the poll it's going to just show up now. It's going to be a pop-up for you all. And Brett, if you want to walk them through the questions, it is a single answer question. And yeah, if you can just kind of let us know which one it applies to you most. So I'll just launch that now.
I think everybody can read it, but what is your biggest operational challenge right now? And everybody can click.
Awesome. While people continue to answer that, what we can do is for the next section, we can use this as a rapid fire kind of picking on Craig ever so slightly, to just kind of go through and answer as to how Firoka have solved for each one of these pain points or each one of these challenges. I think it'd be great to have kind of a rapid fire round with Craig on this, Brett.
All righty. Perfect. So Craig, maybe to jump in, we can have you do a little bit more of an intro on yourself for just a minute or two here. I'm sure most of the panelists or the listeners here know Firoka and the dozen plus hotels that you're operating. But I'd love to hear in your own words just a little bit more about the Firoka collection of hotels and sort of the high level some of the challenges that your team was facing before you guys brought in Snapfix.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the group operations manager for Firoka. We've got we own and operate properties in the UK and in the south of France, some independent and some branded properties. And I think for us, before everything was done, as we said, it was very paper related. I'm a very analytical person, so there was lots of spreadsheets being used. We were using WhatsApp, and we needed to obviously find something that was a lot easier to use and more user friendly. And we found, with Snapfix, you've got that. It's available to all the team, so it's used as part of our induction. We get people to enroll, open up the app. We do a couple of tests with them so they can see what's on there, how it works. And what we found as well is the fact that you can tag a location so you know exactly where it is in your building or your property. You can then tag a category as well, so you could put it down as plumbing or heating or electrical. And then again, it can be assigned to a person and you can see the updates from there as well. So we found that really useful.
It's great. Maybe a great place to start, Craig. So as someone who operates both branded hotels and independent hotels, you've got a wide range of standards that you need to adhere to, including the Firoka standards that you yourselves want to put into place as you think about the experience that you want to create for your guests. And so I'm sort of curious, taking a step away from Snapfix for a minute, before Snapfix, how are you managing all these different sites? How are you, maintaining visibility and standardization, if at all, across all these different properties? I know you were visiting them often and things like that, but how did you do that? What was working? What wasn't working in a multi-site environment?
Well, you rely on the general manager very much for each site to make sure that they're managing their own properties and they're adhering to the brand standards or the Firoka policies. And it's very much, making sure that they're doing that. Whereas I think, with Snapfix, it's easier because you get to see yourself straight away. You haven't necessarily got to communicate with the general manager. You can just go into the app, see what's on there, and then, it's a discussion point also then, with the site managers to say, what's happening with this, or I can see you've got an issue here, and so you can see it much easier. And, you've got the images as well, whereas before you wouldn't necessarily have the images. You just have sort of text to say, this is an issue we've got here, or this is how we're doing with this.
Yeah. And I can't remember if it was you or Alicia earlier talking a bit about sort of checklist management and driving standardization. So could you talk a little bit about how you're getting teams to sort of follow processes, more effectively and really commit to the standards that you guys are pushing forward, you guys think are appropriate for your guests?
Yeah. Well, the good thing is we can, schedule the compliance documents. So we know when they're doing various different health and safety tasks, they can all be, assigned through Snapfix. With the brand, it's really good because you can actually upload some of the brand standards or some of the brand checks that they're asking you to do. Like one brand might be asking you to check, 25% of your room inventory every month from a guest perspective. Some of them we're asking you to do PPM visits in different areas. So again, you can schedule all those now through Snapfix, and you can implement those onto it. And as Alicia said earlier, you can actually put photographs on, so you can say, this is how a finished room should look. This is how, a banqueting room should be set up. So, the team members can actually have pictures to visualize what they need to make sure that they replicate.
Yeah, it's great. It's so true. I mean, one of the reasons why we started Snapfix originally was on this sort of phrase of sorts that a picture speaks 1,000 words. I don't know what the exact phrase is, but in a multilingual environment, which is couldn't be more true than in hospitality. Capturing the essence of what is happening, communicating that to someone very clearly, and making sure every single day people can operate as efficiently and effectively as possible, whether they speak, the native language of that country or not, is incredibly important. It's what drives teams to operate efficiently. So Snapfix is available in 25 plus languages. So we accommodate as many of, people from as many different backgrounds as we possibly can. But at the same time, that visual reminder, that visual indication is both how we communicate what's going on with an issue, we reinforce training, and we ensure that people can sort of like adhere and learn over time. And so I think it's an incredibly important part of driving adoption and driving engagement with the software.
Yeah. And it's good as well because you can show people how some things work, like, this is how the alarm system works here, and you can show pictures of it because, people come and go. And sometimes, through an induction, not necessarily every task gets covered because, in hospitality, no 2 days are the same. There's always something that happens each day that you've got to focus on. But ultimately, you need to make sure the team are trained and they've got the tools to do their job.
Yeah.
So this is a good reference for them to go back on to say, okay, how do I need to do this meter reading, or how was this done? And we use Snapfix for that as well.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to sort of raise up our NFC tags here again and talk a little bit more about fire safety and health and safety. You talked a bit about these, Craig. I know these are in use in your properties. They're about the size of a quarter here, as everyone can see. But maybe just help the group understand a little bit more, sort of how has this changed your ability to drive compliance and accountability for the most critical tasks like fire safety that you have every single day?
Yeah. Well, these tasks are, situated around the property. There's areas that need to be checked, and we then know that they are actually physically being checked. So, they're checking fire exits, they're doing floor walks to make sure that, the room service trays are being cleared. From one of like our football stadium, they're making sure that the whole area is walked and checked. And, it reports back to show you, so you can actually see, when the walk was completed, was the walk completed fully? What tasks weren't, what areas weren't checked? Whereas before, again, it gives the accountability to the team members, and it gives, you as a manager and an owner, the security to know that those, and the comfort to know those areas have been checked. Whereas before, it's, there was the trust element, that's making sure that it was being done, but you wouldn't necessarily know if they have checked it. Whereas with the NFC tags, they physically have to swipe their phone through it, and it's completely user friendly. What's really good is that the staff can turn off the notifications. So if they're not at work, the notifications don't come through to them. And so, it's a good tool, I think, to have, and it's very user friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's been a lot of talk today, and we'll wrap up here in this section in just a minute on this concept of surveillance and accountability. And I think it's an interesting one because obviously surveillance doesn't always feel great from an employee standpoint. I mean, you don't want to feel like your manager is breathing down your throat or over your back. But I think that when you don't have tools and visibility in place, that feeling of, am I being micromanaged? I'm constantly being asked the same questions. I'm constantly not performing for my team in the way that they want, is an issue that's felt even more. Whereas once we provide that visibility to team members, as I said before, I think team members are really able to step up, right? They now understand and can see the same things that their managers are seeing. They get it, that this is what you're asking me to do. I can do these things. And that's a really important change. So it's less about, the ability to say you aren't doing something so much as having this ability to reinforce the standards, the processes, the checklists, the way that the work needs to be done so that incrementally every single day, those operations get better. I think that couldn't be more true than for Firoka. I mean, I know, Craig, you still visit all the properties, but as when we were talking previously, it sounded like Snapfix gives you this ability to go in and also celebrate the property and say, these are things you guys are doing really great. I'm really excited to see this. You're doing this better than other properties. Maybe you could talk a little bit just about sort of staff reinforcement, positive reinforcement, things like that.
No, it really is, because you can reward the staff and you can actually go back to them and say, well done for getting these done. And I think, within the group, it's a learning capability as well, because, one site might be doing something slightly different. You think, well, actually, that really works. And, we've got the capability within Snapfix to change it. We can change the times because we found, some of the checklists operationally weren't practical in the properties for different things. So we've swapped them around, because each property has different restraints and different staff capabilities. So we've used that as a tool across the estate to see what works well where somewhere, and then try to implement it in other places and look to see how other properties have worked on it as well. But ultimately the staff really like it, and I think what's really good is they're very proud of it. We find when we've had different audits coming in for, say, for example, an external health and safety audit, the staff open up the Snapfix app on their phone and say, look, this is how we do it. We record it here. We can see when it's been done. We can see this still needs to be done, or this was completed straight away. And, another thing was good for us is with our vendors. If something was broken, say, for example, a lift went out of action or something, we'd report it on Snapfix, call then the contractor or the vendor to come and sort of fix it. And then we would end up, I've had issues where the vendors then try to charge me because they've come to fix something and it's already back working. And it's like, well, actually, we've got a 2-hour response time on this contract, and it took you 12 hours because we reported it on our system, and I sent them screenshots of the Snapfix to say, look, this is reported when, this is the photograph that we had with it, and then UK guys came out, 23 hours later.
I love that. Not just holding your team, but your third-party teams and vendors accountable, right? And it's important. I mean, that's how you run a better operation. So I think it's a really great use case. All right, so I know we're coming up on the top of the hour here. So I think we can pause here. I'm going to shift it back over to Thomas. I think there's been quite a few questions also that have come in from the group. So turn it back over to you, Thomas, and we will go from there.
Excellent. Thank you, Brett. So what we're going to just touch on now very briefly is the Oxsana membership offer. Brett, if you wouldn't mind taking it from here.
Yes. So as Oxsana members, everyone on this call, if you do choose to work with us, you get special access to different features in the platform and preferential pricing. So a big part, as Al and Alicia talked about in the beginning, is identifying great vendors. Hopefully, you guys will sort of recognize us as a great vendor, but also being able to negotiate with those vendors and get those vendors available at an affordable price and a heavily discounted price for their members. So that's a really key part of what Oxsana is able to bring to the table. So we can talk all about how that works, how our trial process works, and at the end of the day, depending on the size of your property, what Snapfix would ultimately cost for you. In general, Snapfix starts at about £99 per month. So, it is designed to be affordable for even our smallest guest houses and boutique properties, all the way up to some of the largest properties out there.
Fantastic. Okay, so what we'll do next is we will move on to the Q&A section. So I'll bring everyone back and I will start throwing in some questions if that's okay. So bear with me 2 seconds.
And if you do have more questions, feel free to keep dropping them into the chat. I know a bunch have come in for Thomas, so he's combing through them as quickly as he can.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one that came through was just asking about pricing of Snapfix.
I will take that one again. I think I just answered that. So starts at about £99 a month for the baseline modules, it's reactive maintenance and planning. There's a whole host of different features, and as you heard about today, lots of different use cases. So we designed Snapfix to be something that is customizable for different organizations, but our baseline packages include most of the key features that any organization will need. So what we do is encourage you guys to reach out so we can get a better sense of what challenges are you specifically trying to solve, and how large is the operation from a site standpoint, and we can provide a direct quote on that. But again, you guys will have both the Oxsana discount included in that, as well as just the fact that the platform itself is designed to be very affordable for teams.
Fantastic. I've actually linked the pricing page as well into the chat, should anyone want to pop on and have a look. Excellent. The next question that came through was around integrations. So who can we integrate with?
Yes, I'll take this one too. So one of the integrations I talked about earlier as we were showing that rooms and housekeeping module is with your PMS system. So I think we integrate with probably 15 or so property management systems today. Some of the largest ones that you all are probably using. So on the independent side, platforms like Cloudbeds or Stay in Touch or Protel. When we think about some of the ones that are commonly used both from a branded as well as an independent side, Oracle's platform as well. So reach out to us. I mean, integrations, if it's a platform we don't integrate with, is something that typically takes 2 or 3 days, and we're happy to integrate with new PMS systems. Outside of that, we also leverage an open API. And we integrate with lots of different IoT devices. So we talked a little bit about the NFC tags that are in use around properties. But if you're using temperature sensors in different rooms or on your refrigeration systems and things like that, or other device and alerting tools, those can also be automatically integrated with Snapfix to create alerts and to ensure that we're capturing information that we need to capture and putting people on it. So lots of different integrations available there.
Fantastic. Another question that just came through. These are all very much Snapfix questions. Someone was just questioning around the number of users per plan and how does that work? Do we price per user, or how does that go about?
Yeah, broadly speaking, Snapfix is not price per user. We think about it more as a price per location that you're deploying it in, as well as the different features that you might be using. So not everything is relevant to every single team. And so as a sort of full service operations platform from housekeeping to compliance and risk management, we can sort of choose the components that are most relevant to you. But we don't like to think about users as being a limitation to getting started. And one of the main benefits here of using Snapfix is getting everyone on the team onto the platform so that everybody can leverage it and everybody has access to that information and can be coordinated effectively.
Fantastic. As we are at the top of the hour, I know there are more questions there. I will answer them individually myself, but I will just pass it back to Al for final thoughts.
Well, guys, thank you so much, Brett, Craig, Alicia as well, Thomas and Christian. Really appreciate you putting this webinar together for the Oxsana members. And it's been very, very useful, absolutely. And I think, just moving forward, we all know how tough the next year or two are going to be. We've come out of very good times, and now obviously things are tightening up. So I think the key thing to remember, guys, is that it's your hotels that treat kind of this operational data and take it seriously as you take ADR and RevPAR, so that you get your profitability and you maintain that profitability. So it's just remember, it's visibility. Okay, you need the visibility, you need the accountability, and you need the consistency. And you get those three together, you're going to get the profitability. We thank you all again. We thank you all for attending. We wish you untold success with your businesses. We're here for you. We're always here. We serve you. It's an honor to serve you, the Oxsana members and the industry and the wider industry as well. So thank you very much, guys. I wish you a wonderful afternoon, and see you all again soon.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.